So AC, when it comes to Christine Sinclair, I mean, the question for me is, a lot of people will have moments. For me, I think my quintessential Christine Sinclair moment is after she scores the penalty against China when we're hosting the World Cup here in 2015. The intensity that she has when she's running back to the bench, I remember that. That to me is my. If someone asks me what is her impact on the game, it is literally me pointing and saying, look at her face, look at that intensity. That is the person who carried this program for the years that she did, along with her teammates and such. When it comes to you, are what are the memories, are those moments that are stamped in your memory, that are ingrained with you as those quintessential Christine Sinclair moments?
Oh man, it's such a good question. And I feel like everyone's gonna have like kind of their own moment that they think of, whether it's like a moment like that where you're at a home World Cup and you scored against China and you're so right. That really captures the intensity that is Christine Sinclair and that encapsulated her as a player. But I think everyone will have their own moment, which is amazing. I don't know if you saw recently, but I put out like a form to collect people's moments because I was like, oh, this would be an interesting question. But there's
I saw some of
yeah,
that.
there's been
Yeah,
so many
very
good
good.
responses, and I'll share some of them kind of in the next few days. But mine is actually in 2011 in the 2011 World Cup in Germany. Probably one of her least favorite
Yes,
tournaments because they didn't do well in that World Cup, and like she talks about that in
true.
her book. But when she scored that free kick to make it, I think the final score was 2-1 for Germany. But um, that free kick was just kind of the essence of Christine like putting the team on her shoulder for so long, which she did for such a long time. She doesn't have to do anymore. But it's kind of similar. It speaks to that intensity and the passion that she has. Wearing that mask, she had just broken her nose, and that's my moment for me. I'm also part German, so that makes sense. But yeah, that's what I think of.
It's such a good moment. And again, you can't be wrong with the moments. For some people, they'll think of when she burst onto the scene in 2003 at that World Cup. Some people will think, when she's playing in the goal she scores against is it Sweden or Netherlands in the 2019 World Cup? The
Netherlands.
last game of the group rounds, that goal.
Mhm.
I think it's Netherlands because then they lost the Sweden. It
Yeah.
was, but yeah, some people will look at that. Others will say it's goal 190 that she scores. Others will say it's when she's playing as she's playing as a U19 player. So again, you can't be wrong with any of those answers. And I almost want to think of it when we look at her overall, right? We look at her legacy, what she leaves behind. We see on the pitch, right? We see the goals, we see the excellence, we see the highs and the lows. We see finally being the US after never being the US. We have those moments that as fans, as a country, we all gathered for. Now, when it comes to off the pitch, and we think of her legacy, not to say that it wasn't as perfect, but there's definitely moments where we look and say maybe there are moments we can get back. When you look at Christine and the legacy off the pitch and the overall totality of that, how do we look back at that and look at her career overall? There are definitely moments, but I would say there's definitely moments as well, positive moments, but there's also moments where we think maybe we'd like to have some of those moments back. For you, what are some of those moments, but also overall, if we're gonna rate it and give it a scale, what would we give her in terms of this career that she's had and this legacy she leaves?
I mean, it's really hard to put a number on it for sure. If you're talking off field specifically, I think we can all agree that she didn't speak up a lot. Like she wasn't as vocal as some other like compatriots, I guess, of her age group. Like you think of someone like Rapinoe, and Rapinoe was just constantly speaking up, and I feel like Sinclair didn't do that, but that almost meant that when she did speak up, her voice was heard. Like people listened for sure. And so, I think that that definitely has a lot to do with her legacy. And in terms of off-field stuff, like I think the fight for MS, like if anyone's read her book, I've been rereading her book, the MS thing with her mom and like losing her parents like relatively early in life. I think that will stick with people like as a completely off field thing. But just kind of the way that she carried herself, I think definitely she fought when she needed to. And then also, as you say, there were a few moments that were a little dicey. I mean, if you think about what happened in the NWSL in like 2021 with
Yeah.
Portland, like she kind of came out in favor of that ownership group. And I mean, she was young when the Whitecap scandal went down. I think she was only 21, but in hindsight, she
Hmm.
also never did speak out against, Evan Pellerin. She only speaks kindly of him in her book, which makes sense because
Hmm.
he gave her her start. But that all to say, I guess like it's not so mixed because I think on average, like she did so much good and she advocated so much for women in sport and women in soccer. And so there's a few moments that kind of dampen that, but ultimately she was a champion for the sport, for women in sport. And so I think those are kind of details that not everyone will think of or remember. Actually, not many people will, but yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
And I think that's a fair take to have because again, her personality isn't always outspoken. Again, she was the best player in an era of who were outspoken, and she was quietly going. And maybe in the end of the day, we look back and say maybe there were times like you said, she could be more vocal. Right? The Yates report. I mean, that one is fresh in our memory because it just came out back in 2021. But that was an opportunity where she didn't she doesn't speak much, but when she did, I think I can see people, and for myself, I was a little disappointed because I would have loved to see her take a maybe a bit of a stronger vocal stance on it. She did not. She has her reasons for doing that. I'm not going to fault her for that. That is her reasoning, but that's something I find when you have players who don't normally speak up, you tend to hold more of what they say under the fire and to the fire, and whether that's fair or not. And Sinclair was one of those players where she was a person of a few words, but impactful words. And so I think looking back at her in those moments, you mentioned the Whitecaps scandal. We mentioned the Yates reports. I think for a lot of us, looking at her in those comment and the comments she could have made, we look back and say we would have loved to see more. But if you look at her in totality, that that is her consistently, right? So I'm not going to fault a player from basically staying in the pocket of who they are because that is them. So
Here, let me just put in a point. Plus, like you
wonderful.
mentioned as well, I think she did stand up in some of those crucial moments, like especially if you think about
Hmm.
the parliamentary committee that was in early 2023, I think, with
Mm.
Janine and Quinn and
Yep.
Sophie, and like she was there. She went to go testify in front of Parliament, and I think that one comment that she made about Bontis literally got him fired. Like, if you think about it, I don't know how much has improved since Nick
Yeah.
Bontis got fired, but I think the comment, for context for people who don't know, like there was something said by Nick Bontis in regards to Sinclair, like what was she bitching about, something like that. And I literally think her saying that in front of the parliamentary committee got him fired. Like I think she certainly had a lot of power behind her words, and when she did choose to speak up, like as I said, people listened.
We're saying goodbye to her here. National team. She wants to play another year at Portland. We also saw her make an announcement with Diana Matheson with Project8, being co-founders moving forward. What type of role do you envision her having? And let's just say you have Diane's number on speed dial, and you say, "Hey, I know you're working with Christine, but this is the ideal thing for her. Where are you putting her in terms of Project 8, in terms of the structure of the league? Are you asking her to play in the inaugural year so maybe Canadians get one more round of the tour of Christine Sinclair before she officially laces up her boots? What do you think her future with Project 8 holds?
Yeah, so I think the question was around Diana Matheson and Project 8 and Christine's role. And I think honestly the best thing that Christine can do for Project 8 is just increase the visibility. Like I think probably many people still don't know about it. Like we really need to increase the visibility of what is going to be Project 8. And so I think she's currently listed as a brand ambassador, something like along those lines on the website. And it totally makes sense that she was part of those kind of like initial announcement videos because her voice does carry so much weight. And so I guess moving forward, I think at the end of her book she mentioned she either wants to own a dog daycare or be an assistant coach. She mentioned specifically assistant coach because she didn't want the head coach role. And so I don't know if she plays. Like I think she could play. She could play and she would ball out, and it would be like such a full circle moment to see Christine Sinclair like playing in this professional league. Finally, that should have happened after 2012 and after 2015. But I honestly don't know what her best role is, but either way, like she'll bring visibility, and whatever she does, it's gonna be amazing.
Indeed, it will be. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, her as a brand would be great. Selfishly, I'd love to see her play one play one more year here, but that's up to the player, and that'd be great. But anything, even something in terms of just I'd say league operation, league operations, which seems like a weird thing, but I think when you have a player of her caliber who's played at the highest level, applies the highest level, I think her being able to translate and say, let's elevate the standard of this game and the standard of the facilities to make sure that they're all on par with what arguably one of the best goal scorers in the world has ever seen has had, and make sure that's the bare minimum for them. I always love to see that. I always love to see the greats be able to say, this is now the standard. What I got to experience, this should be your standard, and now let's take this to the next level. But as we wrap this up here, right, we have two games against Australia. There's been some movement with the rosters. We have no Sam Kerr for Australia, but also no Evelyn Vienne or Julia Grosso for Canada. We have another Vancouver Whitecaps Elite Academy player, Geneva Hernandez Gray. Shout out to her making this roster. And we have late call up Latifa Abdou, who's coming in, who's been playing at Dijon, however you want to say it, if you're French or not. What are you looking? I know we're here to celebrate Sinclair, and that's what we are all going for and watching. Enjoy the flight, by the way. Take lots of pictures and just a little bit of sand. If you can find a beach with sand, just it's a thing I always ask people to do. Bring back some sand from the beach. Let me feel like I'm warm. Just that's all I ask. But for you, we have the celebration of Sinclair, but what are you looking forward to see on top of all that celebration for Sinclair, McLeod, Schmidt? This game. These games are important because it's their last window before Gold Cup W. What are you looking forward to, and what are you looking to see there?
Yeah, first of all, such a good point about Christine Sinclair like having such a good perspective on like the quality that we need to bring to this new league. And I love Diana's ambition, like that she just wants to be a top five league within the first like few years. Because you're right, Kristen Sinclair has seen the highs and the lows, and like she's seen like the absolute bare minimum of what we definitely should be providing. And so like such a good point. But to your second question, what do we want to see? I want to see a sellout at BC Place. I swear to God, like we gotta sell this shit out. We already beat Rapino, so I'm happy. But like, let's sell it out. I'm willing to put out the funds. Who needs tickets? Let's go, because we like, anyways. As many people as possible need to be at this game, and I love that they've like now renamed it Christine Sinclair Place. For the first game, like they need to take it seriously. They need to compete. It is kind of a bummer that Sam Kerr is coming, but like they still have very quality players. So like, I think that will be like more so the preparation game, and then the BC Place or Christine Sinclair Place game will be like kind of the more celebratory one. But if I want to see like definitely a win. Like we need to get one win. It's the first time we've played Australia since the World Cup, and that was kind of a mess. And like we need to make up for that. Like remember the Jesse Fleming like in tears video? I never want to see that again. But like we need to make amends. And so the first game, like I expect them to play their best 11 and like show out. In terms of those new players that you mentioned, I don't know if they'll get minutes, but it's cool that they've been added to the squad. Latifa Abdou is like a big talent. It's too bad we'll be missing Grosso, especially because we're in BC and like that's her home province. But yeah, first game, let's like ball out. Second game, let's party. That's my attitude. I'm going to the first game only. I wish I could go to the second, but I'm really looking
Oh,
forward to
okay.
both.
Well, you get the business part, and everyone gets the party at the end. Um, that is good. But now that you mentioned no Grosso, I'm now thinking Awujo and Smith, Olivia Smith. This could be a great opportunity for them if Bev gives them the minutes where they can play in that attacking midfield role. If Bev's still gonna go with that back three and then go through, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm very much curious to see how that goes and running through that. But guys, thank you for being here and watching this. You can find AC on X or Twitter. I continue to call it Twitter because Twitter sounds better than X. Just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. But also find her at wsoccer.ca, where she has lists of all Canadians in collegiate here, abroad, everything. I don't know how she has time to do this, but she does. It's probably because she has a publicist now, and she does that half that work for her. So very much happy for that, and find her there, guys, and we'll continue there. But if you guys are going to the game, please have the best time. I can't go because I've had the weeks, as you'll hear in some of this editing. But guys, thank you again for being here. AC, thank you for being with us today. And until next time, bye bye for now, and we will talk to you. And we will talk to you later.